Hello everyone, welcome back to the second video of the Python tutorials for beginners series. So previously we covered how to install Python and how to install VS Code, and now you should be able to run this print hello world program to print hello world in your console. Now in this video we will be covering variables and data types. So there are four types of data in Python: Boolean, string, integer, and float. Boolean can be either true or false. It must start with a capital letter, and true and false are reserved keywords in Python, and they cannot be used as variable names. If true is in lowercase, or if true is in uppercase, or for false, these are not Boolean values. So it must start with a capital letter and it must be either true or false. So we can type out true, and you can see that VS Code highlights true dark blue. Similarly for false, but if we type in true, you can see that it gives an error, and in fact it is not highlighted blue, so it's not a valid Boolean data type. So next we'll talk about strings. Strings are a way to represent characters or text, and anything enclosed with double or with a pair of double or single quotations is a string. It does not matter whether you use double or single quotes, unless you're using single quotes within double quotes or using double quotes within single quotes. So a few examples of valid strings are hello world enclosed in a pair of double quotes, Python, which is enclosed in a pair of double quotes, I'm a string, which is enclosed within a pair of single quotes, and I said hello is enclosed within a pair of single quotes. You can see here that I can use double quotes within the single quotes. If you're using single quotes in the string, then you should enclose that string within a pair of double quotes. So you can see here that if I copy paste the string into Python, it has highlighted the entire string in brown, so this is a valid string. Let's say if I replace the single quotes with double quotes, you can see that Python reads from left to right, and it starts the string from double quotes and it ends until the double quotes, and the white part is in fact not part of the string, so this is an invalid string. Next we'll talk about integers. Integer is any whole number, and it can be positive or negative, and it must not contain a decimal point. A few examples of integers are 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 90, minus 1, 2, 3, and so on. Float is any number and it must contain a decimal point, otherwise it would be an integer. So a few examples of floats are 0, 0.0, 1.0, 2.0, 2.3, and so on. It can be negative or positive. Note that even though 0.0 is technically 0, since it has a decimal point, it is still treated as a float. And you can see below that 2, minus 3, and 8 are not floats because they are integers. So now we'll talk about variables. Variables are containers for storing data, and that data will be either of the four data types on top. So after a program has finished executing, all data stored in variables is lost. So this is in fact a form of short-term memory. There are a few rules to writing variable names. For example, variable names must start with a letter, either uppercase or lowercase, or it must start with an underscore, which is like a white space but underlined. A variable name cannot start with a number. A variable name can only contain letters, uppercase or lowercase, numbers from 0 to 9, and underscores. And again, you cannot start a variable name with a number. Variable names are case sensitive, so age and age in uppercase are in fact different variables. and no white spaces are allowed in variable names. Other special characters like punctuation are also not allowed in variable names. So a few examples of invalid variable names are 9age. So since it starts with a number, it's not a valid variable. My dash name is also not valid because dash is a form of punctuation. Hello there is not a form of not a valid variable name because it has a white space. So examples of valid variable names are my name. So in fact, it does follow all the 6 rules. Python 1, even though it has a number, it is not at the start of the variable name. So this is a valid variable name. Age 3 and age 3 also follow the 6 rules. And note that these two variable names are different because again variable names are case sensitive. So uppercase and lowercase is different. Now it's time for a short quiz. So here are a list of data types and you need to determine what type of data they are. So please pause the video and solve the questions. So I hope that you have attempted the questions. Now the first question is in fact a string, not an integer. The reason is because it is enclosed within double quotes. So it is a string. Next is this is also a string because it's enclosed within a pair of single quotes. Even though it looks like a float, it is a string. This is in fact a trick question and this is not a valid data type at all because it looks like a boolean because it's the word true, but a boolean must start with a capital letter, but in this case true starts with a lowercase t, so it is not a valid boolean data type. Next is false. This is in fact a valid boolean data type because it is the word false and it starts with uppercase F, so it is correct. This is a float because it contains a decimal point and it is a number. This is an integer. This is also an integer because they don't contain decimal points. This might look like a boolean, but in fact it's a string because it's enclosed within double quotes. This is a trick question because even though it looks like it's enclosed within quotations, it starts with a double quote and ends with a single quote. And this is invalid because you need a string to be enclosed within a pair of double quotes or single quotes. If I put this into Python, I will get an error. So you can clearly see that the so it has been underlined red, so that's why it's a error since it's not uh, closed. The quotations haven't been closed. And finally is I said hello there and walked into the room. This is not a valid string because double quotes cannot be used within double quotes. If I copy paste this into Python, you can see that as Python reads from left to right, it starts from the double quote and moves all the way to the other double quote, and this is treated as one string. Then hello there exclamation mark is outside the string, so this is not a valid string data type. So the second part of the quiz is, are these valid variable names? So please pause the video and look through the questions. So now let's go through the questions. So this is an invalid variable name because it starts with a number. This is a valid variable name. This is an invalid variable name because it has a white space. This is an invalid variable name because it has a question mark, which is not allowed. X and 4z's are also valid variable names. This is also a valid variable name. The final question for this quiz is, are these the same variables? So please pause the video and then look through the questions. So now let's go to the answers of this quiz. So true might look like a boolean, but it is actually a valid variable name because it is not a reserved keyword since the boolean true needs to start with a capital T. This is in fact a boolean data type since it starts with a capital letter and it's the word true. So hence this is not even a variable, this is actually a data type. So these are not the same variables at all. False and false look like the same, so they might look like the same variables, but in fact false is not even a variable. It is a reserved keyword in Python to show a boolean data type. So these aren't even variables. So the answer to this question is false or wrong. Age and age are in fact not keywords in the Python language, and they have the same uppercase and lowercase parts, so these are actually the same variables. So let's go to Python and let's first declare a simple string. For example, my name. So this is a valid variable and I'll say John. Okay, and to print a variable I can write print my name, and I'll run the code now, and you can see it has printed the word John. So what in Python, the way to declare a variable is very simple. You just have to call the variable and then add in an equal sign followed by the data type. And remember that this equal sign is actually an assignment operator. So this string is assigned to the variable. So a new variable is made in the program, and this string value is given to my name. This equal sign is not a typical equal sign you use in maths where the left side is equal to the right side, but in fact this equal sign is called an assignment operator because it assigns anything on the right side to the left side. So in fact I can do something like my name is equal to Jeff, and if I print it now, you can see that it prints out Jeff instead of John, because first my name is equal to John, then it is assigned to Jeff. So this code here doesn't say that John is equal to Jeff. That's obviously false. Instead, John is assigned to my name, and then in the second line Jeff is assigned to my name, so it prints Jeff instead. So now let's make a variable of integer data type. So age is equal to 20. So this is in fact an integer because it does not have a decimal point. If you want to make this a float, you can put in 0.5. So this is a float value. And then finally, let's make a boolean. So if goes to high school. So obviously John has probably graduated from high school, so you can say false. Okay, so let's print out these variables, and you will get John 20.5 and false. So that's about it for creating variables and assigning data types to variables. One more thing is how to find out the data type of a variable without actually looking at its assignment. So let's say I hide lines 1, 2, 3, and now the question is, how do I find the data type of my name? So the way you can do this is you can write in type followed by brackets and then my name, and I'll do this for age as well, and for if goes to high school, and then let me print it out. So it prints out class str. Str stands for string, and my name is in fact a string. Next it prints out float, which is correct because age is a float data type. Bool stands for boolean, and this is also correct because if goes to high school is a boolean data type. And let's make age into an integer and run the code again. You can see that now it shows class int, which an int stands for integer. The final thing I want to show you is how to convert between different data types. For example, let's have age is equal to 20. Now this looks like an integer, but it is actually a string because it's enclosed within double quotes. And if I print age and the type of the data type of age and run the code, you'll see that it prints out 20 and class str, which is string. So how would you convert this string to an integer? The way you can do this is to make age is equal to int followed by parentheses and then age. Then you can run the code again, and then you can see that now it has shown class int. The typo there. So now it has become class float. And if I want to convert, and if let's say I have a float and I want to convert back into a string, if I want to convert it to a string, I have to use str and convert it to back to str. So that's about it for variables and data types.